Okay, by now you've learned the interface and you've learned how to set up a project. And now you should have the skills that you need to begin working with content and begin developing an app. As you can see in this image here, I've already sketched the kind of design that we're going to be creating inside of Figma. I sketched this on my iPad, and this is available in your assets folder as well as a PNG. And now it's time to get our hands dirty adding some content. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into Figma here, and in a previous video we already set up a chef_recipe_app file, but if you haven't done this yet, you can just click on new file here and get started from scratch with us. If you do create a new file, I'm just going to open up this file that we have. Your file name should say untitled right here, so to change that, just click inside of this text area and you can name this whatever you'd like. So now we have this new fresh file here. Anytime that you'd like to, you can go into the assets folder and find this PNG image and just open it up for reference as we begin designing. So the first thing we're going to do is set up 5 frames because we know those are the artboards we're going to start out with. So to create new frames, we can click on this frame tool here, and rather than dragging a custom shape like we're doing here, I'm just going to hit delete, and we can go into here in the presets, and I know I'm going to be designing for the iPhone 8, so I'm just going to click on this preset here for an iPhone 8 frame. Now if I hold down Command and scroll down, you can zoom out here, and I'm just going to hold down Option as I drag this 4 other times. Okay, so now we have 5 artboards, and one thing that you can do to make your frames even is hold down Shift and select all of them, and then we can use this distribute horizontal spacing here. So now we have some even spacing. It looks really nice. And the next thing we want to do is name our frames. So we can click on the name here, and if the frame is blank, you can always click inside of the frame to drag it around, but once you add some content in here, like a rectangle for example, now if I click inside of this area, I can't drag it anymore. I have to click on the name here to drag it around. So I'll delete this. Now let's just name our frames. The first one's going to be the splash screen. Second one is home. Third is recipe. And I'll just name this recipe details. And this will be recipe details complete. And the last one here we'll name menu. So we have our 5 artboards, and you can drag these around very easily to reorder or reorganize them as you're going along. And now I can actually drag and select all of these. I'll click on this distribute tool again, and we're good to go. Now a few shortcuts that you'll want to know is the number 1 on the keyboard will zoom everything into place, and the number 0 on the keyboard will zoom into 100%. So they're really nice toggles to jump back and forth in some zoom commands. Now that we have these frames set up, we want to enable a layout grid. So to do that, we can click and then hold down Shift and click the following objects here. We can also click inside of the layers panel, hold down Shift and click the bottom layer to select all of them. And you can see here in the design panel we have a layout grid section that we can just click this plus icon, and instead of a grid here, we can change the grid size to 15 pixels. We can change the opacity of the look, or we can jump into columns here. And I'm going to change the column count to 6. And I know I want the gutter to be 10 pixels in between the columns, and I also want a 10 pixel margin here in between the columns as well. And I tend to find this red color a little bit more pronounced than I'd like, so I'm going to change the transparency here to 5% just to hide that a little bit more. And now that I see this layout, I'm thinking I probably want the edges of the frame here to have a 20 pixel margin for content, so it's not writing right on the edge of that screen. So we still have the 10 pixels here in between each column, and this margin gives us 20 pixels on the sides. If you only select one of these and you edit the layout grid here, there's no way to really copy that style from this frame to this other one. So it's very important as you are setting these up to set them all up in the frames they're going to apply to. Now all of these frames are set to 375 pixels by 667 pixels, and that's the device screen size for the iPhone 8. But there are times where your design is going to go beyond the device screen where you'll scroll up and down. And so to resize these after they're created, for example, the home screen, you can click and drag this down and resize this. So I like to start everything at the device screen height, and then as I'm developing the shapes and the styles, if it starts to go past this screen, you can quickly click and just drag down to increase your frame size. Also, if you want to see more contrast between your frames and the background, for example, if your frames start out as gray, you may not see a contrast here between the gray background and the gray frame. So you can always click on this background setting here, and you can change this down or up. You can change it to really whatever color that you want. But I like to have it just this light gray color here.